All right, on to a bit of information here. As per your syllabus, one of the requirements of this course is to see one of the FMU theater productions. Obviously, it would be relatively ridiculous for you to take a course in live theater and never see a play. Pretty much like seeing or taking Music 101 and never hearing a symphony by Beethoven, or taking Art 101 and never seeing a painting by Michelangelo. It just doesn't make sense. So this part of the semester is upon us. This show opens next week. And part of the process of you seeing the show is you getting a ticket. Here is how you get tickets. The process here is a little bit wacky. And the reason it is wacky is because thousands of Theater 101 students in the past have tried to screw around with the system. And so we've had to manipulate the system and basically twist current students' arms to make sure that you get a ticket and you do what you need to do. The process is twofold. One is ordering and one is picking up a ticket. Now, I don't care if you want to bring someone with you. It's not that you should come or need to come by yourself. Yeah, you can get a couple of tickets, yes. Don't order 25 and then bring 2 of your friends, and then I got 23 seats sitting out here empty because you've got 23 extra tickets in your pocket that are going to waste. And the problem with that is that I cannot then turn around and resell them unless we have the ticket. And I use the word sell them very symbolically. The tickets aren't going to cost you anything. We get about 0.05% of $1 out of your student activity fees. So theoretically, you've already paid for this. But my point is this, and the reason the process is the way it is, and I'll pick on sororities for a second. We get somebody in this class who's a member of sorority, they're going to bring all of their sorority sisters with them, and then here comes 2 of them. And then I wind up with a bunch of empty seats, and then I've got people standing out there in the lobby wanting to get in, and I can't let them in because I don't have the ticket. So the process is this. The box office is open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, from 1 o'clock until 5 o'clock. That's this week and next week. As I said a moment ago, the process is really twofold. This week is for ordering tickets. Next week is for picking up tickets. Meaning that what I want you to do is to call the box office phone number. If you're calling from your dorm room, all you got to do is dial 1365. If you're calling from your cell phone or an off-campus phone of any sort, 843-661-1365. Call between the hours of 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The tickets are pulled first come, first served, which means that when you call and order tickets for one of the particular nights, we start with the best seats and we work out. If you wait till Friday at 4:30 to call, you're going to be in that back corner. But anyway, what you're going to do is this. You're going to call. The people in the box office are going to say, which night would you like to see it? Play runs Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings. curtain time is 7:30. If you arrive at 7:31, the door's going to be locked and you're going to be standing outside. I'm not locking people in, I'm locking people out. But anyway, the show runs Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. No, you do not have to see it all 3 nights. Pick a night. Anyway, when they ask you which night you would like to see it, you say Thursday night, which all of you are going to do, because nobody in here is going to waste a Friday or Saturday night coming back to the classroom to see a classroom exercise. I've already spoken to that philosophy of treating it like a theater experience, not a classroom experience. But anyway, they'll ask you how many tickets you want. They'll ask you if you're a student or an adult. Okay, some of you are over 18, don't get offended. What we're trying to do is keep records in terms of the student city population that sees the productions. And that's all there is to it at this point. You call, tell them what night you want to come see it. They're going to ask you what your name is, how many tickets you want. You've placed your order. Beginning next Monday, there will be a box office booth set up out here in the lobby of the theater, i.e. the art gallery, very near the theater doors. And you slide by here one day next week and pick up the tickets that you have ordered. No, you cannot wait until the night of the production and show up at 7:29 and pick up your tickets at that point. We can't have 355 people bombard the box office at 7:29. The show then wouldn't start until 8:45 to try to get everyone in here. So you need to pick them up in advance. Now, in terms of picking up the tickets in advance, you need to pick them up before 5 o'clock of the day you plan to see the show. Meaning, if you are coming Thursday, you need to have picked them up before 5 o'clock on Thursday. You can come Monday afternoon, you can come Tuesday afternoon, you can come Wednesday afternoon, you can pick them up Thursday afternoon, as long as you've gotten them before 5 o'clock on Thursday. If not, we're going to take them out of your reservation and put them back into general sales. There is no one here on Saturdays, Monday through Friday, so if you want to come Saturday evening, then you need to pick them up before 5 o'clock on Friday. Any of that clear? Now, also, the way we process this stuff via computer, let me just pick on you for a minute. You may look at next week and go, my schedule is really kind of weird, and I'm not sure which night I can come. So this afternoon you call to make reservations for Thursday. Then the next day you call to make reservations for Friday. And then you call to make reservations for Saturday. Now he's got tickets for all 3 nights, and then he can come over here next week and pick them up at random times, and now you're good. But you've also got 4 of my tickets that you're going to waste. I cross-checked the computer references, and boy, I love the fake names that we get. All you got to do then is go, is this student enrolled here? Hell no, this is fake, pull it out. Somebody calls up and says, I want 3 tickets for gymnasium. And then they spell it J-I-M. Yeah, I know all of the tricks, so on and so forth, but nonetheless, don't do this kind of stuff. It really just screws up everything. And yes, Thursday night is going to be the popular night for the reasons I stated a moment ago. But anyway, please make your reservations this week and then pick them up beginning the first of next week. It's that simple. It's going to take you all of about a total of 10 minutes over the course of 2 weeks to be able to do this. And the play is a silly comedy that I think you're going to enjoy. Any questions about that process? Now, since this is a requirement of the course, and it weighs heavily on whether or not you pass the class. How will I know you were here? Each night after all 3 performances, there's a set of stairs that goes up to the control booth right out here by the women's restroom. Within 2 or 3 minutes of the end of the show, I'm going to make my way to the bottom of those stairs just outside of the women's restroom right here. As you come out the doors of the theater, you stop by and you hand me your ticket. I'm going to sign the ticket. I am going to hand it back to you. Between that moment and the next time we have class, you are going to legibly sign the ticket and give it to me at the beginning or the end of class later on. And that way then I have proof positive that you were here. And again, I may be stupid, I may be old, I may have been born at night but not last night. Don't think that you're going to come over here at 9:30 Thursday, Friday, or Saturday evenings and kind of fall in with the crowd that's exiting, come in here, look for somebody's ticket they dropped on the floor, and then come and bring it to me. I've already checked the computer records to see who was supposed to be here that night anyway. And you're thinking, Grenath, we wouldn't do this. Who would go to the trouble of doing this? Lots of folks. So anyway, order the tickets, pick them up next week, see me at the end of the performance that you see, and you better say nice things to me like, oh, I really enjoyed that, so that you get those extra brownie points for the end of the semester. Yes, ma'am. I didn't hear a word of that. Do what?
2 play chess and
That was extra credit. This one is required. That one was purely extra credit. It's what it says on the syllabus. No, this one is required. Now, a couple of other things. This is again something that's had to occur in the last 5 to 6, 7 years. We, the theater program, are now ordering from campus security a police officer to be here every night. And that cop stands in the lobby, and we always wind up with somebody who decides that they want to play by different rules than the typical rules of theater and of theater etiquette. I would hate to see any of you put in some chrome-plated bracelets and taken to Effingham because you refuse to turn off your cell phone once you are inside this theater. But we've had students that said, just heck no, I'm going to sit here and play on Facebook or whatever else that you do with those smartphones through the entire performance, even sitting in the front row where you are 3 feet from the actors. It is incredibly distracting to live actors. It is also incredibly distracting to the folks that are sitting around you while you're sitting in a darkened theater and you've got an LCD screen screaming in your eyes through the whole process. Park them. Turn them off. This isn't a movie theater where you are allowed to come in here with a wash tub full of popcorn and a Pepsi-Cola or a Mountain Dew. This is a whole different kind of animal, folks. And yeah, I realize that there are potentially some of you who have never even seen a formal theatrical production live. Welcome to the PD of South Carolina. That's why we are here. Any other questions? 1365 is the number. Call it. Take care of business. And again, please treat it as a theater experience. Guys, I can only speak from the male point of view, but Lord of mercy, we've now got McDonald's across the street. Take a young lady over there, get her a Happy Meal with a little fruit cup, maybe even a toy pitched in. You got less than $5 invested there. The ticket's free. You get a whole evening, dinner and theater, all for less than $5. It's a great date. Yes, I'm a heck of a romantic. Case of my wife, I can get her just a thing of fries. She loves McDonald's fries. She hates everything else they sell, but she loves their French fries. That it? We're clear.
So if I were to call today, I'd get that question?
Possibly. Again, we just pick them and pull them from the center out, because those are typically the best seats.
But we don't pick the seat; they're picked for us.
No,
right?
they're picked for you.
Okay.
They're first come, first served. Now, if you call at 12:59 today, they're not going to be organized yet. They're still, trying to get everything ironed out. I'd call it 1:05, not 12:59. And sometimes we get bombarded with only one phone line, and you may have to call back because they're taking orders from someone else. But it's not that difficult to do. And no, we don't do online ticketing here yet. All right, let's go back to scenic design and what I was talking about the other day in terms of scenic design. We were somewhere around the beginning of the chapter, page 199. And I was talking about what a set design is all about. And what I was talking about was the fact that a scenic design is providing the audience with expository information. It provides them with information about who inhabits this place, the time period, the geographical location, and so forth. On the following pages, 200 and so on and so forth, and on and on and on, it gets into what a scenic designer does and what their process is. As we talked about the process of the playwright or the process of the director or even the process of the actor, let me speak a little bit to the process of the scenic designer. Personally, I've been designing sets since the mid-1970s. Been doing this for a long time, with all kinds of budgets for a couple of $100 to tens of thousands of dollars in terms of a set design. What I can spend means what I can do in terms of a set design. But a scenic design or a set design obviously begins with the script. It obviously begins with the script. And that's where I start my research process. Now, what do I mean by the research process? A playwright will have clues in the script as to what the location of the action of the play should look like. Now, what do I mean by clues in terms of studying the script? Well, first off, you're going to learn things about the characters. Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they slobs? Are they materialistic? That will tell you things. You might see a line of dialogue where an actor says to another one, "Gee, it's hot in here. Let me open a window." And you go, there's got to be a window. "Here, let me have your coat. I'll hang it up." Well, that tells you there needs to be a coat closet. In the case of this play behind me, this room is used for the bride and the bridesmaids, since the play is called Always a Bridesmaid, to prepare for a wedding. This play takes place in a southern mansion that has been converted into a venue for hosting weddings out on the lawn. And reading the script, I saw lines of dialogue that referred to 2 different dressing rooms. Yeah, I've still got to hang the doors, but there's an area there for bridesmaids to go off and get ready, an area over there. The other thing that you hear or read in the script is things about the fact that the play takes place on the location of the action of the play takes place on the 2nd floor. Ergo, that's arch that's up center, that has stairs going down, to indicate that where the bride and the bridesmaids are preparing for the wedding, you've got to go down to get to the first floor rather, to where the wedding is going to take place. But this is the kind of information that the scenic designer is looking for. Anything that is contained in the dialogue that will indicate things that are required for the set. And it also, you'll find, little indications through dialogue about, what the furniture requirements might be, what else is there. In the script for this play, when you read it, you see things about them talking about a champagne bottle and a bucket on ice and some champagne flutes on a table where they're toasting each other prior to the wedding ceremony. Again, all of this is information that you're digging up. Now, beyond that, in terms of the historic time period, there's no real direct reference to when this place was built, but it does say some things about it being built during the antebellum era, the house being very old, so there needs to be some sense of a southern plantation, ergo the extensive architectural detail and the moldings that are up there. Once the scenic designer has plowed through the script, and quite frankly, I'll read a script 4, 5, 6, 7 times. The first time I read it, I'm reading it just for the fun of it, like I would read anything, a novel, a short story, just for the fun of it, to get the flavor of the action of the play and the storyline. Then I start doing the research, looking at who the characters are, what their personalities are like. I began looking for indications for scenic elements that would be required, furniture, props, set dressing, interior decor, and all of that. And then obviously looking for things in terms of the time period of the play. This play takes place in the present, but the location was built a century ago. Ultimately, I'm going to sit down with the director and talk to the director about what he or she feels that the show needs in terms of, again, scenic design, in terms of the set itself, how they envision the action of the play. Does the play need to have a very small set where they feel very cramped, or does it need to be spacious and open for all kinds of actions and activities that might occur in terms of the action of the play? But again, the director is again giving the scenic designer some idea about how they also envision the play and about the color scheme of it and so on and so forth. All of this information the scenic designer ultimately puts together when they go to their drawing board. When they go to their drawing board. I'm going to give you a handout that has some kind of generic drawings that a scenic designer would do to create the set for a play. Trip over those chairs. One for her way down there on the end. This thing, by the way, is twofold. There's images on the back that we'll use when we get to costume design later this week. But anyway, the scenic designer is going to take all the information they have gathered, not just from reading the script, but from discussing the play with the director. And many times I have found myself having to do some internet or library research. I'll give you an example. We did a play a number of years ago here called The Lion in Winter. The Lion in Winter is about King Henry II of England and his son Richard the Lionhearted, and it takes place in the 11th century in England, and it takes place inside a castle. So I had to do extensive research in terms of what an 11th century castle would look like. Not today what it would look like in ruins. I needed to know what one freshly built looked like, because it took place in the 11th century. And beyond that, you can't go to the local antique furniture stores and go, I'm looking for some furniture for an 11th century castle. They're going to laugh at you. I had to do a tremendous amount of research in terms of the furniture so that I could draw images of what these pieces of furniture are going to look like, because we had to build them here. Can't go to the store and buy them. This is the kind of thing that the scenic designer is going to do. Now, when I say they ultimately go to their drawing board, I have a drafting table in my office. Been there for 35 years. I sit down and I begin making pencil sketches of what I think the finished product is going to look like. But of the different drawings, and I have them listed on the board up here, the floor plan, the front elevation, the rear elevation, the three that are illustrated on this handout that I'm going to initially do. The floor plan is the first one I'm going to do. And as you see on the handout, in that top, and again, small computer-generated illustration, it shows you the proscenium opening, with it being 32 feet wide. It shows you the layout of the walls, the entrances and the exits, the doors, the archways. It shows you the placement of the furniture, including a sofa and an end table and a side chair and another side chair, even a grand piano. It shows stairs leading upstairs to an illusionary second floor. This is the first drawing that the scenic designer is going to do, the layout of the setting of the play. And I meant to bring down my floor plan for this thing, and I walked out of my office and left it, that I did months ago. Now the question is why is this drawing done first? Because the director needs it as soon as possible, so that the director can then begin planning and mapping out their blocking in terms of establishing the traffic patterns and the movement patterns of the actors within this setting. Now, skipping a little bit, I have another term up here, and the term is rendering. From any of those three drawings on that piece of paper, do you really get much of an idea of what that finished set's going to look like? Do you really get an idea of what that finished set's going to look like? Really, no. Now, there's two other drawings in there. The middle one. It's what's called a front elevation. Theoretically speaking, that set is sitting on stage like this, very much like this one is. But what that front elevation does is it takes those three walls and then elevates them, makes them stand up. Here's the stage right wall, the up center wall, and the stage left wall. And all they've done is taken that set and just flattened it out on drafting paper. And the designer has added all of the architectural features of the room, the fireplace, the moldings that go around the doors, the other architectural moldings of cornice and baseboard and chair rail, a built-in bookcase with all kinds of knickknacks and furniture and all of that. But it begins to give you at least an indication of what this set's going to look like. So it's taking what would be a three-dimensional environment and just flattens it out. Now, the other question that comes up with the front elevation, meaning that we're looking at the set from the front, and we have taken the floor plan and literally made it stand up. We've elevated it. The bottom illustration is what we call a rear elevation. And the rear elevation is where the designer has taken the set now and flipped it around as if you were looking at it from the back. And that's the drawing that goes into the scenic construction shop so that the carpenters know how to build the set. When you were backstage the other day with me, what is backstage is a whole different world than what you see from the front. You could see all of how that set was constructed, all of the framing members, of how those walls were constructed and so forth. But ultimately, where the scenic designer has to go is to what I have listed up there third or fourth, and that is to what we call a rendering. To a rendering. I brought down my 100-year-old portfolio this morning. This is a rendering for my very first professional scenic design. I did this one in May of 1980. And I wasn't paid a hell of a lot of money for it. But this is for a Broadway-style musical called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. It's a silly musical comedy. It's been around for decades now. But it takes place, the action of the play takes place on a street in Rome in the year 400 BC. And so what I had to do then was to research what exterior Roman architecture would look like to create what was basically a suburban street in Rome in 400 BC. Now this was done in a thrust theater. You can see the lighting system up here, you can see the orchestra pit down here, and you can see these three houses that I've created. Now, what is a rendering? A rendering is a watercolor, three-dimensional painting of what the finished set's going to look like. It's a three-dimensional watercolor painting of what the finished set's going to look like. There is no producer and no director on the planet that is going to pay a scenic designer to design the set for a show without knowing what it's ultimately going to look like way in advance. A director's not going to come up to me and go, I trust you, Granat, to put the right thing up there, just go for it. It ain't going to happen. No more than you would go and buy a car without ever seeing it until you've passed over some money. You're not going to do that, nor is a producer or a director going to do it. They want to know what the finished product's going to look like. So I did the preliminary floor plan, I did a preliminary front elevation, I did a preliminary rear elevation, which then gave me the guidelines for creating this. The interesting part about this illustration here is this was number 6 or 7. I did this 6 or 7 times before I came up with something that everybody was happy with. The rest of these are long gone in the Miami-Dade County landfill. Because I did this for a theater called the Ring Theater in Miami, Florida in May of 1980. This show was performed during the month of June of 1980 down there. But there were different things that they wanted me to change and alter about it to get it to where they wanted it. The interesting thing is, and of course those of you who insist on sitting way back in the back barely can see that I'm holding this thing, much less the detail in it. But this house right here is painted red in shades of pink. And it's got two statues of women left and right of the main door. Well, that's to indicate that this place was used as a bordello. Cliche, but I got it. This house over here is blue. It's got plaster and adobe falling off of it and vines growing all over it to indicate to the audience that the man that lives here has been gone for a while. The center house is much larger, much ornate, very gold, marble, purple, very royal looking because the guy that lived here was filthy rich. Again, my point here is that I'm indicating or communicating information about the inhabitants to the audience through the set design. And in all of it following the architectural style of what a house in Rome in the year 400 BC would look like.
So you hated that?
Where'd that come from? Yes, it's my job.
That's pretty crazy.
Nah, that's crappy. Hang on. All right, here's one for the Coconut Grove Playhouse in Miami for the Tennessee Williams play, A Streetcar Named Desire. Takes place in the French Quarter of New Orleans with all of the wrought iron that you see in New Orleans. Oh, here's one even earlier than 1980. This again for the Coconut Grove Playhouse. This is for the Lorraine Hansberry play, A Raisin in the Sun, that takes place in a tenement apartment in Chicago back in the late 40s or the early 50s. I've done this show several times. But again, it gives you the indication of the whole thing. There's my nice proscenium arch. See, as if we're looking in through the side of the building into those people's homes. This is a rendering of a backdrop that wound up being 30 feet wide and 30 feet tall. This is what I handed over to the scenic artist of this theater, who literally stood here and painted this backdrop looking at this to make sure they matched. That's the exact same thing that we're talking about here. But taking it a step further even, if I can find it. Oh, come on, where are they? Come on. I know you're here. There's so much garbage in here. Oh, come on. That's not it. Ah, there they are. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Costume designer. Costume designer's got to create the costumes for a play. Let's just take Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. They've got to put clothes on the back of Mark Antony and Julius Caesar. You can't go to the local fabric shop in your local town and say, oh, I'm looking for some patterns and some fabric to build Roman togas. They're going to laugh. So the costume designer has to design and create renderings for what the costumes for that particular production are going to look like. This is Mark Antony. This is Julius Caesar for a production I did a bazillion years ago. But again, these are what are passed on to the staff in the various shops to have to go by in terms of being able to fabricate the design costumes for that particular play. This is what all designers do, especially in terms of scenic design or costume design. The woman that did Caesar's cape here wanted to kill me because it took her about a week to stencil this fleur-de-lis little design on a cape that was made out of about 30 yards of silk fabric. She's going to kill me for that one. But it's part of the name of the game of the process. But again, the people with the money want to know what that finished product is going to look like. They're not going to just take your word for it. And this all has to be approved in advance before the carpenters or the costume shop takes over and begins spending money on materials and begin fabricating this stuff. The producer, the director, have the right of approval of all of it. That's who I'm working for and working with. So you have to be able to give them some concrete information, if you will, in terms of drawings and in terms of the rendering, in terms of what this finished product is going to ultimately look like. Now, with that said, has anybody in here had Art 101 before? Anybody had Art 101? Few of you? All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, but it'll tie back in a moment. Those of you who took Art 101, you studied a wide variety of movements in art. Impressionism, Expressionism, Dadaism, Cubism, Realism, Surrealism, yes? And all of these are just different ways of approaching different works of art, whether it's in sculpture, whether it's in painting, and so forth. It's different ways of an artist expressing themselves. Now, with that said, there are different kinds of sets. This thing behind me, as I described it last Friday, and I briefly mentioned it this morning, and I've still got it on the board, this is what we call typically a box set, a realistic interior. Once the doors are hanging and the furniture's there, it's going to look like somebody's room in a house, hopefully. And I get the floor painted. Realistic interior. But I could have done this thing in a different style, meaning surrealistic, in a kind of a fantasy mode, where the paint was running down the walls and the walls are leaning to the side and things are misshapen, almost like you're on some kind of a drug trip, and I'm still doing a box set. What I'm getting at here is there are all kinds of sets, what we call unit sets, simultaneous sets, wing and drop sets, multiple sets, box sets. There's all different kinds of art movements that get involved. This one just happens to be realistic. But we could have done it impressionistic, where we just give you the slightest impression of what the location is. Or expressionistic, which is trying to express a kind of a psychological mood or a tone of a particular character. It's all of this. So how in the world do you go about, again, as I've done with so many other areas, go about classifying a play, a set for a play? And what I want to do is go back to two terms that I've used previously, if I can find a place to do it, and that is representational and presentational set. Representational and presentational. I didn't finish spelling the word because I ran out of board. Representational and presentational. Page 204, by the way. Representation and presentation. Presentation. Just as two simple ways so that we get out of and away from all of the various types of sets and all the various types of art movements. Because what I do is a work of art. I just have a much different style canvas, if you will. But what I'm driving at is this. A representational set. This is just two easy ways of classifying set designs. Representational means that the set does what the word says. It represents an identifiable location. It represents an identifiable location. Even with this set 85% complete at this point, a week from the day when you come in, it will be 100% complete. But nonetheless, at this point, you could classify this as a representational set, that it represents an identifiable location. Obviously, the other one then, the presentational set, is defined as a set that does not represent an identifiable location. It does not represent an identifiable location. I called your attention to page 200 or 204, where these two photographs of two different productions are listed or shown. One, the top one is obviously representational in the fact that it does identify or represent an identifiable location in terms of some kind of a greasy spoon cafe, probably on the side of a highway somewhere. It's just a little cafe, a mom and pop cafe. It's recognizable. It's identifiable. The bottom one, I've showed you this before. We talked about realism and non-realism. These, what appears to be floating eyeballs against a backdrop with blue light on it. It doesn't represent an identifiable location. What I'm getting at is this. Set designs, many of them do require an identifiable location, or plays require an identifiable location. Where the play takes place is very important. There are many plays where the action of the play takes place is very important. There are many other plays where the location is completely unimportant, where the focus is more on the story and the characters than where the story happens and where the characters are. So again, a shortcut to being able to identify them is either as representational or presentational. Anyway, we will continue this on Wednesday. Don't forget to give the box office a ring-a-ding this afternoon and begin placing your orders for tickets.